You are listening to Eat Meat Sparingly, a Word of Wisdom podcast. I am your host, Allie Essig. Before we get into the episode, I want to quickly remind you that I will be speaking at Restore this year. Restore is a Faith Matters gathering where over 5,000 to 6,000 individuals come to hear inspiring speakers, see beautiful art, and listen to gorgeous music. I'll also be hosting a booth there. And if you want to grab a ticket, make sure to enter PlantWise at checkout to get 10% off. And in order to grab your ticket, just go to faithmatters.org. I would absolutely love to see you there. All right. Today's episode is going to go live right before we study the Word of Wisdom in church. Now, it's not going to be studied in our typical Sunday school lessons this year, unfortunately. But for some of you, you may be studying it in the youth programs or the youth classes. And it is such an important topic. Although I am grateful that last week when I got to teach Sunday school, we were able to dive deeper into Doctrine Covenants 88. And I truly think that Doctrine Covenants 88 is like the prep work for Doctrine Covenants 89. I love that it outlines that the soul and the body, the soul makes up the spirit and the body, that both the spirit and the body work together to form our soul. And so it's so important that we take care of our body. In Doctrine Covenants 88, it talked about sleep and getting enough sleep, not too much sleep, and just making sure that you are getting the sleep that your body needs. And that really does create the foundation to then open up to Doctrine and Covenants 89. And I also want to remind you that Doctrine and Covenants 89 started with a question. And I want to close this episode with that same question. And I'm going to tell you why this question, but this is the question that I want you to be pondering as we go over the topic of today's podcast. And the question is, what am I not paying attention to that I need to be? That's how this whole thing started, right? When Emma was like, this is disgusting mess. The school of the prophets who came together to make themselves holy, to prepare themselves. And Emma pointed out, something doesn't feel right. And so for you in your life, does something not feel right? Is there a change that you need to make? Is there something that you need to be paying attention to that maybe you're not paying attention to yet? Even if it's off the beaten path, even if it's not common. Back then when Doctrine and Covenants 89 came out, it was not a common thing to talk about every single aspect that it talks about. Cigarettes, for example, were totally popular. And it wasn't until hundreds of years later that we really understood how unhealthy they were for us. I mean, cigarettes weren't actually invented yet. It was tobacco. Tobacco at the time, there was no second thought of tobacco besides the fact that it was gross. But it wasn't even related to health or how that could affect your health. And so as we dive in, I want you to really keep that question in mind. Is there something that you need to be paying attention to that you're not? And this last week, I got to attend the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine here in Washington, D.C. It's a conference where over 700 doctors and nurses and dietitians get together to learn and understand more about nutrition and how it plays a role on our health. It's fascinating to me. I just wanted to get up and shout, "God up!" This is it. Everything they're talking about is outlined in the Word of Wisdom. Everything from skin health to cancer to literally everything to your LDL cholesterol. And so I want to go over just part one. Again, this is definitely going to be a 2-part episode because there's so much that was gone over in that conference. But I want to talk about what some of the doctors and the speakers outlined in their presentations and pass on that information to them. It's where the best of the best, the doctors who have the most expertise in these particular subjects come and share this information with other doctors so they can get continual education credits and learn more about how nutrition affects our health. So let's start with Dr. Kim Allen Williams. So Dr. Kim Allen Williams, he came to speak about cholesterol. Really, he specializes in cardiology, and he really talked about and went deep how plant-based diets and statins, how they both actually work. That a plant-based diet has been shown to improve your LDL cholesterol, all of the markers, and it really is the best thing that you can do when it comes to nutrition and lowering your LDL cholesterol. He talked about how your HDL doesn't really matter, and so don't pay too much attention to it. It does not matter for cardiovascular health risk as much as we thought it did in the past, but LDL does matter, especially your ApoB numbers. That really does matter. And he said a lot of doctors will just prescribe a statin, and it has been shown to help, no question. But he says for everyone that he prescribes a statin, he also prescribes a plant-based diet. And then if you can do both, but why does it have to be one or the other? In fact, if you really want to give yourself a fighting chance, he suggested to do both, a statin and a plant-based diet, and that one doesn't override the other. In fact, they support each other. So you shouldn't be thinking, oh, I'm on a statin, I don't need to worry about it. No way, no way. If you've had any type of cardiovascular disease in the past, cardiovascular event, whether it's a heart attack or a stroke or anything, you should be not only on a statin, but also on a plant-based diet. Give yourself a fighting chance. And that's what we're doing in our household. After my husband's stroke, I wanted to do everything that's possible in my control, and changing our diet is in our control. Why not? Why not give yourself a fighting chance? He said that for everyone who has followed a plant-based diet and has been on a statin, there has been zero reoccurring events, right? So if I don't want my husband to have another stroke in the future, then not only should be on that statin, but also on a plant-based diet, that the two work hand in hand together. All right. Then Dr. Gemma Newman got up and spoke. She spoke all about supplements. And specifically for one part of the presentation, she talked about how supplements actually don't work for cancer prevention. That's why food is so important, that you cannot supplement your way out of cancer. You just can't, like reversing, or I know there's a lot of talk about other methods, whether it's ivermectin or fenbendazole, like that's not really considered necessarily a supplement. We're talking about you cannot supplement, like give yourself vitamin A or vitamin C or all these vitamins to prevent cancer. It's not going to happen, but you can prevent cancer with food, with actual food. They also went into, here are the known proven methods to prevent cancer. And this is the WCRP's advice. And it says, number one, you need to have be a healthy weight. So try to lose weight if you're overweight, because that is a huge risk of cancer. Number two is to be physically active. The exercise really does help. Any form of exercise. I want you to keep in mind, any form, just move your body. If you're sedentary, then any form of exercise to not be sedentary is going to help. To eat whole grains, veggies, fruits, and beans, that those are the foods that are known to reduce your cancer risk. To limit fast foods as much as possible, to significantly limit red and processed meats, and to limit sugary drinks, limiting alcohol and avoid smoking, and to practice safe practices when you're in the sun, whether it's just hanging out in the shade or wearing sunproof clothing or sunscreen. And so those are known to work, and they're simple. They're easy. That they may be a little more difficult to follow, especially when it comes to avoiding sugary drinks or red and processed meats. But we already know, as we are limiting alcohol and smoking, the benefits that come from doing that. And while fast foods can come in handy, sometimes avoiding them is the best thing you can do for your risk of cancer. All right. Then after that, we had Dr. Kristi Funk. Dr. Kristi Funk is hilarious. She is like my favorite presenter of all. You're at this medical conference. There's a lot of boring information. It's kind of hard sometimes to keep your eyes open if you haven't slept enough the night before, but not with Dr. Kristi Funk's presentations. I absolutely love her. And you know why I love her? Because she does the research. And then when she understands what the research says, she changes her own life. She changes her own personal habits. An example of that is she was a breast surgeon and decided to write a book about breast cancer. And it's now out in the public. You can buy it. And I highly suggest it if you or someone you know is struggling with breast cancer. The book is called Breasts, Breasts. Hot pink. And I think it has either grapefruit or lemons or something on the front of it. I can't remember what fruit it is, but I highly suggest it. And when she was writing that book and when she was actually doing the research on nutrition, on food, she realized that she needed to change her diet, that she was not eating the best foods. In fact, I love the story that she gives where she was writing the book, doing the research, and then she has triplets. So then she went to fix her triplets, their lunches for their summer camp that day. And so she went downstairs, fixed their lunches, rolled up some just lunch meats with some cheese, thinking that she was doing a great job, low carb, like high protein, doing the best she could from what she knew. And she rolled it up, made her lunches, made lunches for her kids, and then sent them off to school. And then she sat down to do research for her book. And she read all about processed meats. And she realized, she's like, what have I done? What have I done? So she ran back downstairs and took out her kids' lunches and was like, I can't do this anymore. Anyway, it was so funny. Like she had no idea, right? And then she changed her diet. So now she follows a mostly plant-based diet and was doing that for a long time. And recently realized that, like many in our society who casually drink, don't do it very often, they limit their alcohol intake. It's only on special occasions. But she realized there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. And if I'm telling all of these ladies day in and day out who have cancer as I'm doing their surgery to avoid alcohol, I should be doing it too. So she stopped drinking completely. And I really, really admire her for that. One of the biggest things I learned from her, and I've heard this all the time, right? We hear processed meats, avoid processed meats. And we think of processed meats when it comes to your risk of cancer as bacon. Oh yeah, bacon. I shouldn't eat bacon, right? And now we're realizing that it goes beyond bacon and sausage, which for most women is pretty easy to avoid, but it goes deeper into deli meats, which is more common for women that we're eating maybe for lunch, but also something that I used to feed my kids almost every single day. And that was chicken nuggets. Chicken nuggets, guys. Chicken nuggets are a processed meat and are therefore a group 1 carcinogen. I think if any mother out there understood or knew that as you're feeding your kids chicken nuggets, that you are feeding them carcinogens. Yes, they're in the same category as cigarettes. Are they at the same level? Maybe not, but they are in the same category, group 1 carcinogens. Had I known, I would have never fed my kids chicken nuggets. Especially, here's the fascinating part, and I won't be able to go on this presentation today because it deserves an entire episode, but Dr. Greger spoke later on at this conference, and he went deep into the research on ultra-processed plant-based meats and your risk of things like cancer, and guess what? You'd be surprised. They are not necessarily like healthy foods, but they are significantly less risky than actual meat when it comes to ultra processed chicken nuggets that are plant-based versus ultra processed chicken nuggets that are meat-based. Meat-based are carcinogen, period. Plant-based are not, period. And so if you're going to feed your kids chicken nuggets, make it plant-based. At least make it plant-based. It's better for their health. It's better for the environment. It's better for animals. It's just a better option. I wish it was cheaper. It is slightly more expensive, but I think as more people are aware that meat-based chicken nuggets are increasing your risk of cancer, more people are going to be less likely to feed these to their children, along with the hot dogs, right? I know any mom who cares about the health of their kids will stop doing that. And the reason why, so I love that Dr. Kristi Funk just doesn't say, well, it's a group 1 carcinogen. She talks about how they are pro-angiogenesis. Now, angiogenesis is the formation of blood cells, of blood vessels, and especially around cancer. And so when you're eating these ultra processed meats, it's basically telling your body to form blood cells around cancer to help the cancer grow, to support the cancer in growing. They're pro-angiogenesis. They increase what's called your risk, your cancer risk, what's called VEGF. VEGF. She talked a lot about VEGF, and basically processed meats increase VEGF. Red meat also increases VEGF. She says it's through a different pathway, but it still increases VEGF. Why does that matter? Because that increases your cancer risk. And so we really do need to be avoiding these foods, especially when it comes to breast cancer. And how the foods that are anti-angiogenesis are going to be plants, especially in their whole food form. She talked about how soy is actually beneficial, anti-angiogenesis, how all cruciferous vegetables are cancer crushers, right? They're amazing. How flax seeds are so good for you and also are anti-angiogenic. And so all of these plant foods that you can find, even an apple a day, will help to keep breast cancer at bay. Like all of these foods that are natural from Mother Earth will help reduce your risk. She talked a lot about insulin resistance. And I know insulin resistance is the fad. And this is something that we've talked about before on this podcast, but how insulin resistance increases when your saturated fat intake increases. So if you really want to minimize your insulin resistance, minimize the amount of saturated fat that you're consuming, even from healthy sources like coconut oil or palm oil. So minimizing saturated fat is key. And the thing is, most saturated fat is found in, can you guess? Cheese. Cheese is the number 1 source in the American diet. So minimizing your consumption of cheese will minimize your consumption of saturated fat. Next is beef. And so minimizing red meat, all the reasons why. And she shared a study how a low-fat vegan diet improves glycemic control and your cardiovascular risk. You're going to see a lot of studies where maybe like a low carb diets, where low carb diets will improve glycemic control. And it's true. If you have insulin resistance, or if you're really trying to minimize your blood sugar spike, you have two options. Option number one is you count your carbs. You minimize the amount of carbohydrates that you are consuming. You keep that as low as possible. Will that work to stabilize your blood sugar? Yes, 100%. Option two is to minimize the amount of saturated fat you're eating and really keep your overall fat intake nice and low to 30 grams or less a day. If you do that, will that help your glycemic control? And the answer is yes. I have worked with clients and it's within days. They'll go from huge blood sugar spikes. And then if they can keep their fat low to 30 grams or less, their blood sugar stabilizes. It's a miracle. It's amazing to watch. But here's the difference between the two. They're both great for blood sugar control, but they are not both great for LDL, for cholesterol, for cardiovascular risk. They're both not great for your risk of cancer. Can you guess which one is not great for your risk of cancer? The one where you're eating low carbs and high animal products. That one, as we talked about, if you're eating processed meat, if you're eating bacon, if you're eating chicken nuggets, yes, it's going to stabilize your blood sugar, but it's going to increase your risk of cancer. If you're eating red meat, if you're eating beef and lamb and pork, guess what? It's going to stabilize your blood sugar, but it's going to also increase your LDL cholesterol. So the only diet that does not do that is going to be a low-fat vegan diet. It's going to improve your glycemic control and your cardiovascular risk. And then Dr. Kristi Funk talked about exercise because it's not just food. As we know, exercise plays a key role. Exercise is so important for breast cancer risk. She says the exercise is a dose response curve. So if you are sedentary, any form of exercise is going to improve your health significantly, even if it's 5 minutes a day. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day. That's why in our membership, I have a 5-minute a day program, whether it's Pilates or whether it's strength training. If all you've got is 5 minutes a day, I've got a program for you because any increase is going to be beneficial, period. And there's no risk. But she did say that if you want the minimum amount of effort for the maximum results, so minimal effort, maximum results when it comes to your breast cancer risk, can you guess how much exercise that is? She said in 1 week, that would be getting 150 to 300 minutes of exercise within 1 week. If you want the minimal amount of effort for the maximum amount of results. And guess what number that is? I bet you probably already know. That's going to be about 20 to 30 minutes of exercise a day. And that's why it's suggested by everyone to do about a half-hour workout a day. You can miss a day or two and be fine because you're at least getting that. And basically, there's less death with more exercise. But don't let that minimum of 30 minutes prevent you from actually doing 5. Leave your house right now. Listen to this podcast. Keep listening. Go leave your house, walk up the street for 5 minutes, turn around and walk back. That small thing, especially if done right after a meal or right before a meal, will help to stabilize your blood sugar, will help to reduce your risk of cancer, all of the things. Just move your body, just move it. It's so beneficial. She also talked about pooping. Let's talk about poop for a little bit and how pooping regularly reduces your risk of breast cancer. But why? Why? It was fascinating. She went into the detail of our bile and how when we're a little constipated, when we're not going regularly, that basically these bile acids are going to recycle themselves and they'll even end up in your breast tissues. But as you're going more regularly, that you are using more bile acids, like you're going number 2, you need bile acids to move things right along. In order to move things right along, you need bulk, which comes from fiber, right? And so we need the high fiber foods to help us. And she talked about how bile acids influence the growth of breast cancer. So if you want to minimize your risk of breast cancer, go poop more often. The last doctor that I want to talk about today, again, I'll save the rest of this conference for another podcast episode because this was just day 1.5. And the other doctor that I was so thrilled and so excited to see that was coming to speak is Dr. Dean Ornish. Now, I've attended this conference for the last few years, but Dr. Dean Ornish, I think he lives in California and he always just shares his presentation remotely, which has been amazing and super beneficial, but it's remote, right? It's over Zoom and it's great, but it's nothing like seeing him in person. And he actually came in person this time and he shared his amazing research that is fairly new. It came out in June of last year about Alzheimer's disease. And he took a bunch of people through his study, and they worked for 20 weeks on improving their lifestyle and their diet, right? And so his method is all about moving more. So exercising, eating well. He puts them on a low fat vegetarian diet. So he does have a little bit of low fat dairy, but most of the time it's a low fat vegetarian diet. He has them stress less. They have to do meditation and yoga to really work on reducing their stress and loving more. He really wants them to spend more time in their social network, to make their social network a priority, which is so fascinating to make that a priority. Most people don't. We don't make it our social network a priority. And so him doing that has been amazing to see the results. So he talks about how those in his program, there was a dose response relationship. And so the degree of lifestyle change influence the degree of change in their brain. So the more they change their lifestyle, the more that they improved in their brain health, in their cognition, in minimizing the effects of Alzheimer's disease. And lifestyle change, he proved that has not been proven before, that lifestyle change can reverse or stop Alzheimer's disease. Now, again, this is a groundbreaking study. This has not been done before. You're basically told when you have Alzheimer's, sorry, like there's nothing you can do. In fact, people who have Alzheimer's with the day that they're diagnosed and a couple of months afterwards have a 7 times increase in suicide rates because it's depressing. They think that there's absolutely no hope. There's nothing they can do. And so him doing this research and showing, hey, there is something you can do. You can change your lifestyle. You can change your diet. You can reverse this. It gives people their life back. It's a gift. It is a gift that he's given this world. And not only has he done this with Alzheimer's disease, he did this with prostate cancer, and he showed that you can reverse prostate cancer. He did this with heart disease. He showed that you can reverse heart disease. In fact, when I was posting all this research from Dr. Dean Ornish on my Instagram, I got so many messages from people who said, yeah, I found a plant-based diet because my husband was in the hospital. And luckily at this hospital, when you have a cardiovascular event, they put you through Dean Ornish's program. They said it was life-changing. They don't know where they would have been without him. It's amazing. And it's amazing to see the research that he was able to do. And again, this is new, that to show that you can actually reverse Alzheimer's disease with these lifestyle changes. Now, what's interesting is he said drugs, out of all of the research that we have, out of all of the money that we spent on drugs, the drugs can only slow it down. They don't reverse it. They don't stop it. Drugs only slow Alzheimer's disease. It just slows it down, and that's it. That's it. Now, does he say, does it need to be one or the other? And the answer is no. You can actually take the drugs and change your lifestyle. Just like with the cardiovascular event, you can take statins and change your lifestyle. You can go on a plant-based diet. You can work the two together. It doesn't have to be all or nothing one way or the other way. It can be both, and they can be a synergetic relationship working together hand in hand. And he said that lifestyle only has good side effects. Like literally, why are we not putting more energy into helping people change their lifestyles, into these programs, into giving them that gift, because it only has positive side effects. You can do both. And he said that comprehensive lifestyle improved cognition and function in, how long did it take? 20 weeks. In 20 weeks. His program showed that in 20 weeks. And again, there was that dose response relationship. So the people who really went in head first, totally, completely changed their lifestyle, spent the time, made the changes they need to, they saw the greatest improvements. And then in his presentation, he had all of these people. It was emotional. It was so emotional to see all of these people basically bear their testimony of this program and how it has changed their life. There was the guy who loved playing bagpipes, and he had to stop playing bagpipes because he couldn't remember the tunes anymore. And after going through Dr. Dean Ornich's program, he was able to pick up his bagpipes and play again. And he shared a story about it, and he got emotional. We were all crying in the room to see what a gift it was. He was young. Looked like he was in his 50s, like not even that old. And to have his life back, what gift that is. And guess what? Here's the crazy part, guys. This is the word of wisdom. This is what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints offers every member. Is this education, this information. It is life-saving. It is a gift. And not only that, we offer all of those 4 pillars, right? The move more. Okay, you're going to have to exercise on your own. But the eat well, eating according to the word of wisdom, stress less, love more. If you really dive into the gospel, that helps you on all of those layers. Now, what I also love is that he says it's not all or nothing. He says a lot of times he would work with people and they would say, but cigarettes have always been there for me. I open up a pack and I have 8 friends right there, 8 friends. And they've always been there for me. And I can't imagine my life without them. And I've met with so many people when it comes to food. The food has always been there for them. Food is their best friend. Food is their comfort when no one else is there. And so that's why his program doesn't just focus on changing your food, but he focuses on the social connections, on loving more, on improving your relationships, on reducing your stress. It's more than just food and information. It's an entire program to change your life. And like I said at the very beginning about listening to that inner voice, I never thought I would be at a medical conference where I'd feel the spirit so strongly. But Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Barnard got up and they opened it up for questions. Okay, what questions do you have? And I don't know who asked what question or how we got on this subject. But Dr. Dean Ornish opened up his heart and said, I was really suicidal. I was a suicidal teenager. I didn't want to live. I didn't like my life. And then he was able to meet a spiritual guide for his life and show him how to listen to the inner voice, the still small voice. He said that inner voice speaks clearly and quietly, But as he took the time, he says he does it every morning. As he took the time to listen to it, it guided his life. And he feels like I've already been in the worst part of life. Where else can I go? I've already hit rock bottom before. So, what do I have to lose? And he started listening to it and it guided his life to do what he's doing. In fact, he said that every single study that he's done, like the one on prostate cancer, the one on heart disease, and now this one on Alzheimer's disease, he said that it had never been done before. And it was truly thought impossible. Guys, it's still to this day, people think it's impossible to reverse Alzheimer's disease. But guess what? He proved otherwise. And he said that all of that time, he had been guided by this inner voice to do it, do this study, do this research. He said that in the mornings, he would be still, quiet his mind, and talk to that inner voice and say, what am I not paying attention to that I need to? What am I not paying attention to that I need to? And so I would just want to invite you as well. What are you not paying attention to that you need to? Can you listen to that inner voice? What is it that about your health? Is it exercise? Is it following more of a plant-based, low-fat plant-based diet? What is it that you need to be paying attention to that you're not, so you can reach that next level of health, so that you can minimize your risk of cancer and all of these things? What is it that you're not paying attention to that you need to? And I can't help but bring up this as I've listened to the fact that this is the week we're going to be studying the word of wisdom and we're going to be sharing it in classes on Sunday. I cannot help as I listen to so many Come Follow Me podcasts this week about people and their thoughts on the word of wisdom. And it broke my heart that many skim over or don't even mention at all how the word of wisdom talks about eating meat sparingly. What is it as a church that we're not paying attention to that we need to? How can that bless the lives of so many individuals? We're just thinking, oh, it's different, right? It's thought of as impossible. It's thought of as something totally different than our societal norms. It's off the beaten path. But if Dr. Dean Ornish would have just let it be at that, then we wouldn't have what we have now. And so what are you not listening to? What do you need to pay attention to more of? I really did appreciate, though, in Come Follow Him, that the guest they had on did mention that something's important when God mentions it more than once. And not only in Doctrine Covenants 89 does God say to eat meat sparingly, but also in Doctrine Covenants 49. In Doctrine Covenants 49, 18 through 21. And in verse 21, he says, and woe be unto man that sheddeth blood, or that wasteth flesh, and hath no need. And then in Doctrine and Covenants 59, and in 59 verse 20, it says, and it pleaseth God that he hath given all these things unto man, like in abundance. We have the right to eat the animals on the earth, yes. But unto this end were they made to be used, with judgment, not to excess, neither by extortion. And then in Doctrine and Covenants 89, 12, 13, 14, and verse 13, he says, and it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used only in times of winter or cold or famine. And I like to really take a second. Dr. Benjamin Hardy says that all progress starts by telling the truth. All progress starts by telling the truth. Can we be honest with ourselves for a second? That factory farming exists primarily to meet the overconsumption of animal products, and that in most industrialized nations, meat is eaten far beyond sparingly, often multiple times a day. This level of demand pushes farms to maximize output at any cost, which itself becomes a form of excess. Animals are confined in unnatural, cruel conditions where their lives are commodified for profit. Workers in these systems often face unsafe, exploitative conditions, low wages, high injury rates. The earth is heavily taxed, deforestation for feed crops, massive water use, and pollution from waste lagoons. Consumers are misled by marketing that hides the true cost. The subsidies and lobbying keep prices artificially low, while society absorbs the health and environmental costs. All of that reflects extortion in the sense of exploiting life and creation for gain in unjust, oppressive, or manipulative ways. It's powerful to point out that the Lord tied meat consumption and stewardship of creation to principles of equity, judgment, and gratitude. Factory farming runs directly counter to those principles. It isn't sparing. It isn't equitable, it isn't reverent toward life, and it places profit over stewardship. So yes, I can faithfully and persuasively say that the current factory farming practices exemplify the excess and exhortation warned against in Scripture. And so, should we pass over it? Should we ignore it and think, oh, it's not that big of a deal? We don't want to put things in Scripture that's not there. I'm not talking about our sugar consumption. Like, that's not in Scripture, but it is very clearly outlined in Scripture to eat meat sparingly. And so, again, I want to end this episode. What am I not paying attention to that I need to? What are we not paying attention to that we need to? I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to Eat Meat Sparingly, a Word of Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Ali Essig. And if you need more help and support with transitioning to eating more plants so you can lose weight and improve your gut health and just reduce your risk of chronic disease, then make sure to check out my PlantWise membership. That's PlantWhys, because I like to teach the why behind eating more plants. But if all you need is just a couple more delicious recipes that feed your family and everyone loves, and not to mention super simple and easy, then make sure to check out my YouTube channel, which is also PlantWhys, PlantWhys. Hope to see you there.